What's going on, folks? It's your main man, Rick the Don. Hey, I'm sorry I'm a little late. Look, I like to digest the episode. Even though I do these little recaps and things of that nature, I'm a big fan of the show. And a lot of times I'm just spending time just trying to understand and comprehend exactly what I just saw. But I want to say before I get started, thank you to all the people that liked the last episode, the last recap. You all are doing amazing things. For me, I really appreciate it. Usually when I drop things and drop videos, they go to the YouTube basement. But because of your support, things are really helping me out, or I'm getting seen a little bit more. So again, I appreciate that kind of stuff. All right, let's jump right in. The first thing is it is the end of a showmance. This showmance is over. We're talking about the showmance between Alyssa and Kyle. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm not mistaken, the post pack includes Alyssa and Kyle. And with Kyle being in the Leftovers Alliance, obviously things became a little interesting. All right, there was a conflict of interest. Kyle had to make a decision that puts him directly in the crosshairs of Alyssa in his eviction of Amira. And this episode actually reveals some really cool things in terms of what's going on at home for Alyssa. Apparently, Alyssa is in a relationship. Her special person, I'm not sure I've ever heard a side piece or a boyfriend or girlfriend be referred to as a special person back home. It's just like I never really heard that before. It was kind of funny when I heard it. Usually, someone obviously it's like an open relationship. They're not completely serious. Maybe he's still in the process of wooing her and trying to get her, but it's not necessarily official. And then she goes on the show, and I mean, even for me, I'm looking at this whole thing like it's just really messy because from the boyfriend standpoint at home, he has to see all the vlogs popping up, all the videos popping up saying there's a showmance, and then he's probably like glued to the live feeds just trying to make sure that everything's okay. And then from Kyle's standpoint, when he hears something like that, I mean, I'm sure that doesn't feel pretty good. Now, if you don't know, Alyssa has a breakdown moment and she kind of divulges some information to Joseph, who's in the Leftovers Alliance with Kyle, and he pretty much hears that Alyssa has a special person back home, and he immediately goes and tell his bestie, his friend Kyle, right? And Kyle has mixed emotions, and I think this brings up a really interesting dynamic. I was really rooting for Kyle in this instance. I'm thinking to myself, I hate to see Kyle get played. I hate to use that word here, but I hate to see him get played and maybe taken advantage of. He's a little naive because he hasn't really dated a lot, and I think Joseph was sticking to the bro code on this one right here. So I had to say shout out to Joseph on this one. But this is definitely going to be the end of a showmance between Alyssa and Kyle. She seemed to be very invisibly frustrated when that information came out. Now I do want to go back just a tad bit. No, I'm gonna keep going. No, I have to go back. I have to go back. So I'm gonna go back to the very first thing you see when the episode pops on, and that is the invitation HoH competition. And the finalists, just in case you're not sure who that is or you wasn't really able to watch the episode, this was a two-part HoH, and the finalists was Jasmine, Terrence, Brittany, Monty, Nicole, Daniel, Alyssa, and Joseph. So if you don't know, that was a 3 versus 5 HoH competition. That meaning that 3 players in the final 8 was a part of the Leftovers Alliance. And really, the Leftovers Alliance did terribly in this competition overall. Okay. With only 3 people making it to the top 8, that wasn't good. I mean, Taylor didn't make it. I mean, really, I'm surprised at the outcome because 3 versus 5, you think naturally 5 people can beat 3. But in this situation, that was not the case because Monty, of all people, pulls out the victory. For those people who was not able to watch the HoH, it was one of those competitions where you have to slide something on a very slippery table. And I believe the numbers ranged from 1 to 5. And you slid the cup, and the cup was basically supposed to land somewhere between 1 and 5. And this was a little bit of a different twist on this competition because Big Brother usually recycles competitions. But this was the first time where I saw 3 different tables used. So they took the cumulative score of these 3 different tables, and that was your score. And when you finished your 3 tables, your 3 drink slides, you would go up underneath the little podium where they have a little number which indicates how you scored. And for a minute, Nicole was looking pretty strong as if she could actually take it home. And as I was watching this, I'm thinking to myself, this would be a absolutely terrible week if Nicole wins. Now, I'm going to try my best to be objective And when I say that, I mean, I don't want to necessarily come across as I'm rooting for the Leftovers Alliance. I want to be very neutral here. So you will hear me throw some shots at Leftovers. But Nicole was Nicole was the leader for quite some time. And eventually she did get taken out by Monty. Monty takes over. Now, I said this in my preview. I'm not sure if you got a chance to see it, but I said that Monty had a good chance to win this one. I believe let's just get something out the way. Can we just get one thing out the way? Terrence sucks. Okay. Now, Terrence is the kind of player that I root for, like inside, because Terrence reminds me of myself. When I'm not performing my best, when I'm playing something that I'm not supposed to be playing, whether it be basketball against young guys or something like that, I'm Terrence on the court in that situation. So something inside of me roots for Terrence at all costs, at all causes. And it's just like he sucks, man. And I think I just got to get to the point where I'm okay with that. I'm not saying this is not an indictment on his character. This is not an indictment on Terrence overall. I'm just saying within the game of Big Brother, he is not good. Okay, because I'm thinking to myself, Terrence is a older man, and I'm just thinking to myself, you had to have had these kind of competitions in one way or another where you just slid a drink down and I'm just thinking that experience in this situation is actually gonna land in his favor. And I'm telling you, Terrence absolutely tanks the HoH competition, and it's one of the funniest things just watching him. But yeah, I was really surprised by that. Now, one thing that really came out in this episode that I was very surprised by, once the blind side on the mirror takes place, you'll see that everybody's really dumbfounded about, hey, who did this? How did this happen? And one thing that I was very surprised by, and I'm really curious to see what you think about this, was Michael being honest about his role in Amira's blind side a good move. And I think that people will be very, very divided on this. I think this was a polarizing decision, but for me, I have to say it was a bad move. Now, I'm not one to criticize Michael. I think that anything Michael does in the game is golden. I think he is the easy win for this particular season of Big Brother. But I have to ask people, because I know people are just as invested as I am, was Michael revealing that he had been a part of Amira's eviction a smart move? I would like to hear people's thoughts on that. And, no judgments. I just want to know what you think about it, because I know how I feel. I felt like he should have kept that to himself, because you got a cop in the game. And I'm not sure he knows that, obviously, because Nicole's playing a really good game in terms of keeping herself covert. But you got a cop in the game, and if you give a cop anything, they're going to use that information. They're going to start to, pick up trails, and they're going to put on their detective hat and start figuring out, okay, if Michael was a part of this, then who does Michael talk to? Like, I just thought that Michael revealing that information was a bad move. Now, the other side of that coin is, if Michael does not divulge that information, then it makes him look bad later. Perhaps if he doesn't do that, at some point, when it does come out that he was a part of it, it definitely makes him look like a snake. So I felt like Michael was in a really, really tough position, and you can't really fault him before making that, that judgment call. But in my opinion, I just thought that was a rushed and bad move. If nothing else, play along. But again, you got to think about the long game, and I think the long game might actually favor a move like Michael's. Next, this move to remove Amira may have created more collateral damage than I anticipated. People were visibly shaken by the removal of Amira from the game. I did not anticipate that. And it's because I've been playing as a reviewer, as a recapper, as someone who's watching these episodes and then kind of talking about it. I have to admit that I was a little bit biased for the Leftovers. I like to see the small guys win. I'm a small channel. I like to see people who are not expected to reach the top. So I have to say I kind of got pulled into that, but I have to pull myself back out and look at this thing objectively overall and realize that Amira was a beloved player within the game, and she had friends, like friends. She had really touched people within the game itself. And once she leaves, you really see in this episode that people are visibly shaken, and they are visibly upset. Nicole is out for revenge, and anything that Nicole is with, you see that Daniel is with. Alyssa had a complete breakdown. So this move by the Leftovers created some huge ripple effects. And I'm not sure that I was being open about it and saying that, hey, this could happen. I didn't really realize the collateral damage of this move. Now, in my opinion, everything's fine if the Leftovers play a clean and strategic and perfect game, but that's not what happens. I want to talk about really soon how I feel like this week was a bad week for the Leftovers. So that collateral damage from the blind side is very, very visible this week. Monty wins HOH, and I have to just say I'm happy because I'm biased. I think the leftovers being on top is always a great thing, but man, he is not a. I think this week has shown me that I was right about Monty. I thought that he was a good all-around player. He's a very strong player, but I knew that from a strategic standpoint, he would not really show any strengths there. I thought he was very average or lukewarm when it came to strategic moves. And he makes a lot of bad moves this week. And maybe I'm wrong, but I've seen this show enough to know that Monty is not making good moves. And I'm going to talk about that shortly. But I want to say he wins HOH, which is a huge sigh of relief, because that at the very least means that Taylor may not be picked on this week. And I'm not saying not put on the block. I mean just picked on, okay? That also may mean that the Leftovers Alliance can stay 7+1 strong with Terrence. So from that aspect, it was really awesome, and I was happy to see that. And of course, I had to visualize Nicole possibly coming in and stealing that, but that was not the case. If I'm not mistaken, Nicole scored a 9, whereas Monty scored 11. Now, this episode shows something that was very interesting. It shows Jasmine, Daniel, Nicole, and Alyssa having a foursome conversation about what's going on in the house. And again, I told you that the leftovers making the moves that they made created a lot of collateral damage. So there's one point in this episode where you see these four, Jasmine, Daniel, Nicole, and Alyssa, in that little bathroom next to the shower area. I don't know, what is that? It's like a little room, but they're having a conversation between the four of them. And they're like, what is going on in this house? And it really shows you the dynamic of the house, because, you can only capture the climate of the house so much through a television screen, but seeing those four hurdled over each other, like having these secret conversations, to me really shows me the mood of the house. And I don't think you see that necessarily if you don't really know what to look for, but it shows that it's four people in this house and they're like really confused, whereas everyone else is either in the Leftovers Alliance, not really caring one way or the other, or these four, which is completely out of the loop, they're trying to scramble. And this is what I said about Michael coming clean about being a part of Amira's eviction, because you got four people, one of them being a cop. They're going to start putting pieces together. And I think if the Leftovers Alliance wanted to stay under the radar, Michael divulging that information was the wrong move, because between these four, they will figure it out. Okay. So they are just kind of like hurdled over and just trying to figure it out. But not long after that scene pops up, Monty comes by and says, hey, you want to check out my HOH room? And we see a really different Monty. Monty seems to be visibly emotional. He's crying and things of that nature because he's missing home. So that was interesting. I didn't know how to feel about that, but I kind of went along with it. But one thing that was very epic in this episode is that Monty and the Leftovers, once everybody that's not in the Alliance leaves out of the room, they have like the hugest celebration. So I just found that to be pretty interesting and pretty cool. And kind of cool to see. But again, it's like hold your horses, because some things that happened after that really made me question whether or not this Leftovers Alliance is going to make it to the end. Now, so Monty begins the process of trying to figure out who should go on the block, and he calls in everybody like every HOH does. And one person he calls into the room is Taylor, and Taylor is telling Monty, hey, I don't want to go back on the block. I'm not really, I don't want my first move within this alliance to be back on the block. And then this is where Monty, in my opinion, makes the first critical mistake of his HOH, and also overall where the Leftovers make their first critical mistake. It's not playing along with the narrative. Taylor, being a player that has been on the block consistently, where the entire house wants her out, that was their golden ticket. Sometimes when you reach success, you forget what got you there. And what got the Leftovers to this power position is Taylor being the weak link, Taylor being the point of emphasis, the point of focus. And I think that particular aspect of the game lapsed this Leftovers Alliance, because Taylor immediately says she doesn't want to go on the block. And unfortunately, Monty, in my opinion, this is my opinion, I'm not saying this is fact, but I think Monty, in a really weird way, has a liking for Taylor. I think it's a hidden showmance, maybe not a showmance, but a hidden. I think he just likes. I think he's attracted to her for natural reasons, right? And I think because of that, he makes a bad move in saying, "Hey, whatever you want, Taylor. If you don't want this, I'm going to follow along with that. If you don't want that, I'm going to follow along with that." I'm not saying that Monty has it out for Taylor in terms of he wants a huge showmance. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is he's looking to do some damage control, and it doesn't hurt that she is attractive to him, right? And I think he allows her to have too much power because, man, I hate to say it this way, but that's small ball. That's small picture thinking. Giving Taylor the calling card to make her own moves in this particular alliance right now is a critical mistake in my opinion. And I know what it sounds like, but I can't shy away from what I'm feeling. Taylor, if she was playing a group game, playing a wide focus game, she would have allowed herself to go back on the block. No, Taylor, this is not the time to start tooting your horn. This is the time to keep going with the charade that you are the biggest target. Because in doing so, it'll make those four people that I talked about, Jasmine, Daniel, Nicole, Alyssa, it'll make them feel like, okay, that was just a weird week. That was something that just happened that was an anomaly, right? But when Taylor is not on the block, immediately Nicole's antennas have to go up and say, wait, something more is happening here. And I need to figure it out. Nicole is a smart player. And Taylor not, and this is the weird part. Taylor wants Nicole out, but she was not willing to go on a block in order to make that happen. Terrible move on Taylor's part. Terrible move on Monty's part. Terrible move on the leftovers part. Now they're starting to play a different game. So what happens is Monty puts up Alyssa and Indy. Why? What was the? I need people in the comments to let me know if I'm tripping here. I'm not a big brother wizard. Okay, I'm a casual viewer like yourself. I didn't watch the live feeds. I don't watch any of that stuff. I just watch the shows themselves. So I'm not here to say I'm all knowing. But what I will say is that was a weird move for me. You put Taylor back on the block so that you can get Nicole out because let's be honest. At this particular point in the game, Nicole, outside of the Leftovers Alliance, is the most terrifying force in the game. It's not Daniel. It's not Indy. It's Nicole. Okay, it's not Alyssa. It's Nicole. Nicole is the only player that can muster up enough fire to take down this alliance. And they missed a critical opportunity to take a shot at Nicole. No, actually, putting Nicole on a block next to Taylor is not a shot. She's gone. Taylor misses that opportunity because she's thinking about her own personal game and not thinking about the overall alliance. So she puts Monty in an awkward position and just basically makes him feel terrible for putting Taylor and Nicole on the block, which was the absolute positive, perfect move. So in my opinion, I have to just give them, if I had to grade the Leftovers first, HoH reign, right now it's at a C. Whereas they're not making moves so bad that it's going to tank their whole season. But you certainly missed the golden opportunity. Now, there has to be individuals thinking to themselves, wait, hey, slow down, Don, and slow down, Rick, because if those two on the block, that being Indy and Alyssa, if they come down or win the veto, which I don't see as likely, but if they do come down, you have the opportunity to put Taylor and Nicole up. But, man, I just think it's a bad move because whoever wins the HoH, and I feel like it's going to be somebody who's going to keep the nominations the same, which I also believe that will mean that on Thursday, Indy and Alyssa will be on the block. I'm going to do that episode next, but I think Indy and Alyssa will be on the block. And between those two, who really cares who goes home? Of course, Alyssa is the more popular person to go home. But, I mean, whether Alyssa or Indy goes home, I don't see either of those moves truly benefiting, how you say it. I don't really feel like that's going to benefit the Leftovers Alliance. I just think this is a critical move. And I hate to just keep going on that, but it was so daunting to me. And, I'm not in the house, so I can't judge how things feel. Maybe the pressure that Taylor puts on Monty is just so strong that we've all been in that situation where someone's asking us something, you just cannot say no in the moment. And this may have been what it was for Monty. Okay. But I will also say the Leftovers Alliance are not covert enough. They're not underneath the radar enough. They celebrate in the HoH room. They're hanging out a little bit more than they should. They're the last people to leave out of the HoH room. These are trails. These are little breadcrumbs that people like a Nicole will eventually sniff out. When you're in an alliance this strong, this powerful, this impactful, you have to spread out. If you don't know, if you look at the Big Brother season from the prior year, you'll see the Cookout did this excellently. Even though they were all African-American, they're all the same, they spread out. And not only did they spread out, they found someone that was completely different from the alliance to hang with and be a number two with. This is the critical mistake. And, this is a misjudgment on my part, because if you watch my previous episodes on this, I say the Leftovers Alliance are a powerhouse. They are a super alliance, and I still feel that to a certain degree. But they are making some critical mistakes in the game, and I really think at some point it's going to actually cost them. Do I still believe the Leftovers Alliance will be in the finals? Of course I do. But I think it's going to be a weird, they may lose. I mean, if Nicole gets to the finals against the Leftovers member, can you imagine the story she's going to bring up? She's going to bring up her mother. She's going to bring up fighting for Paloma. I mean, it's going to be really rough for the Leftovers if they don't wise up here, because they're making some critical decisions. They're too close. They're not targeting Taylor. And I understand that Turner, maybe his speech last week, though it did a lot of good, it may have also done some bad, because now people don't want to necessarily target Taylor. And that was probably the best angle that the Leftovers had in actually moving forward. Like, let's continue the charade. And Monty had the perfect angle. Hey, I'm not targeting Taylor. I'm not saying that she's a bad person, but it's best for my game. And Nicole would have went hook, line, and sinker for that pitch and move, and that would have been a perfect opportunity to remove Nicole from the game. And once Nicole is out, the other side of the house is pretty much headless. They have nobody outside of Daniel, maybe, that can actually uproot the Leftovers Alliance. Bad move. I'm sorry. Now, one thing happens within this episode, and it's Indy going to the HoH room with Monty, and she kind of says, "Hey, I don't want to be on the block." And it just reminded me that, people are very selfish, and I'm included in that equation. People will rather see somebody else burn before themselves. Indy gives Monty a pitch, basically saying, "I don't want to go on the block. It could be anybody but me," right? And isn't that human philosophy and psychology? She offers other individuals, and as I'm watching this, I'm thinking to myself, Indy, you've never been on the block, and I think Monty is pitching to her like, "Hey, I can put you on the block as a pawn," and she just like, I don't even want to touch the block. It's like, baby, you're in a game where it's a competition, and while I understand you don't want to be a pawn, it just shows me human psychology. I'm not saying I disagree with her move or disagree with her pitch not to go on the block, but it just shows me how people think. Look, anybody but me, right? So that happens. Monty, man, I need him to wake up, but he's not that player. And I have to say, it doesn't surprise me. Monty never struck me as a player that was strategic. He never struck me as a player who made those moves that were or can be conceived as intellectually sound. He is he's more physical. If you look at his particular his entire all of his attributes, most of his strengths lying in his physicality and his stamina and his cardio. Those things. Even though the HoH competition was more intellectual than physical, I just don't know. Not putting Taylor up was just. I need people to let me know. Am I tripping about this? I feel like someone disagrees. Someone has to disagree with me on this one, because Monty disagrees, obviously. Was putting Indy and Alyssa up a better move than putting up Taylor and Nicole? Let me know what you think about that. Am I in the outs on this? Am I the only person who felt like Monty made a misjudgment here? Let me know. I'm not the kind of person that, when somebody disagrees with me, I just go off. No, I'm gonna kind of, I'm gonna receive it and try to understand, because I don't understand right now. I want to talk about something that's pretty interesting. Watching Taylor and Monty have these one-on-one conversations, it leads me to believe that this could be something. And I know it's the obvious thing. There is no showmasters on the show right now. And I'm not sure if the Big Brother editors are just leading me down this little breadcrumb, down this rabbit hole. But the way that Monty has changed his entire sentiment towards Taylor is a little suspect. Monty was head and shoulders against Taylor in the beginning. And as he said in the last episode, she's starting to warm up to me, or I'm starting to warm up to her. So obviously, Monty is starting to feel Taylor a little bit, and him not going for her juggler, or at least using her as what they call it, as a pawn for a huge move against Nicole, which would be amazing for Monty's game. Can you imagine Monty's pitch once he got to the end saying, "Hey, I was a part of getting Nicole out. She's our biggest threat"? That would have been huge for him. He can't say that now, because I believe Monty is having the heart flutters for Taylor. All right. Terrible nominations. That is my verdict. I need your opinions on this. This is not a court of law, but that's still how I feel about it. So I have to say this before I end this episode. And again, I'm not done. I'm going to do maybe two more videos, but I have to end this one saying Indy versus Alyssa. What do you get from this? I mean, outside of taking a shot at their numbers, you still leave the most powerful duo in the game in the game. Okay, you still leave them alive and well. I don't know any scenario where you have the power, you have the numbers, and you have the shot to take, and you take out the weakest person on the other side. That is inconceivable, because if you don't do it now, Daniel and Nicole will rise up and be a threat. And that's what I'm going to stop here, because that's what I want to talk about next in one of my next videos live. All right. But you get rid of Indy. Okay. You got rid of a sex. Oh, man, I'm going to sound terrible. You get rid of a person who is not playing the game. Indy doesn't want to go on the block. She doesn't want to go. She doesn't want to do anything Big Brother related. So I'm trying. And the sad part is, if Indy and Alyssa are on the block, in my opinion, Indy goes home, because Alyssa has better connections within the house. She has a better social game. So I'm sorry. I just think it was a bad move. If Alyssa goes home, okay, if Alyssa goes home, what does that really benefit you? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Monty. All right, but am I wrong? Am I right? Please let me know what you think, and let me know in the comment section. Thank you all for watching this one. I got a couple more I'm gonna do tonight. And please like a small channel, like this video. It definitely helps out. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.